So let's talk about aging hamsters. If you don't follow me on my social media, you may not know that Honey recently has started slowing down and just showing a lot more elderly hamster signs. Honey is 1.6 years old, and if you didn't know, hamsters on average live 1.5 to 2 years. They can live a little bit longer, but nowadays the average is pretty accurate. Now, just because your hamster is over 1.5 years old, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to start showing elderly hamster signs. There are some hamsters who are 2 years old and they still look like a young hamster, whereas there's hamsters who just hit 1.5 years and they've started to just look very scruffy and old. It's kind of like human beings. You can see an 80-year-old and they may not even look 80, and you can see a 60-year-old and they can look like they're 90. So it kind of just depends on your genetics, and so not every hamster is going to start showing elderly hamster signs, but when they get into that age range, they are going to be slowing down a bit more generally. So some signs of a hamster that's starting to become more elderly would include just lack of activity. You may notice they're going to be sleeping more often, or they might come out for some food and some water, and they might go back into their nest rather than run on their wheel, or they may just run on their wheel for a very short period of time and then go back to sleep. You may also find your hamster sleeping in weird areas. They might fall asleep on the wheel or fall asleep just randomly in the middle of the cage. It's a pretty common thing to happen with elderly people. They kind of just get tired and they're like, I'm gonna nap right here. So that is something that can happen as well. Another thing is weight loss. Now obviously you don't want a dramatic weight loss, like if your hamster loses 10 grams, that's obviously not good. But if you start to notice your hamster is losing 1 to 2 grams over a long period of time, that is normal, because you start to lose your fat and muscle and you start to get smaller. Another thing with elderly hamsters is hair thinning. This is another common thing. All old people start to not have long, luscious hair. You eventually start to kind of thin out and bald out a bit. So it is common for a hamster to start looking a little bit more scruffy and not as young as they used to. Their fur may not be shiny anymore. Honey herself is actually looking a lot more scruffy. She has started to thin out on her face with her hair and the top of her head, so you can see a bit more of her skin, as well as her skin has started to wrinkle a bit, which is quite interesting, but I still love her anyways. Decreased appetite is another symptom of a hamster becoming more elderly. Now, if they stop eating altogether, that's not good, but if your hamster is slowing down on how fast they eat their food, that is normal. Another thing is you do want to check out their teeth. An elderly hamster will start to get more brittle teeth, so they are more prone to breaking, and if the front teeth do break, they might struggle a bit more for eating their food. So you can also, if your hamster is struggling to eat more, then you can take their pellets in their mix and add some water and microwave that and make it into a mush for them so that they're getting all the nutrients they need. Another thing that I've been doing for Honey is she still eats her food just fine, but just for some added nutrients, I've been giving her some safe baby food every night. I've been switching up the different types. I try to avoid anything with tons of fruits in it because fruits are very sugary and I want something a bit more healthy. So this right here is the Love Child Organics. It just has apples, sweet potatoes, broccoli, and spinach. And there is no added preservatives or unsafe ingredients like onions or garlic. Another thing that I've personally done for Honey is I actually went ahead and downgraded her enclosure. Now, an elderly hamster still should have a cage that meets the bare minimum. I don't think they should have anything less than that, but if your hamster isn't using their large cage or they're having a harder time getting around, I think downgrading to something a little bit smaller so all of their amenities are closer by is okay. I've just put Honey into one of my old bin cages where her food, water, hideout, and wheel are all a lot closer, as well as for your hamster, depending on the hamster, some elderly hamsters might have a harder time doing things like climbing, so you might want to remove anything that's a bit difficult for them. Arthritis is a thing that can happen with older animals, and it can happen with hamsters as well, so you kind of want to make their enclosure a little bit easier for them to get around. Dealing with a aging hamster can be quite hard because hamsters don't have long lifespans like a rabbit or a dog does, so you really only get a limited amount of time with them, and you really never know how long they really are going to live. Some can surprise you and live longer than you think, but you kind of never really know. You basically just have to spend as much time with them as possible, give them a good quality of life, as well as interact with them and show them that they are loved. Even if they are an elderly hamster, they of course still deserve love. Another thing I want to add with elderly hamsters is you might want to switch them to a softer bedding. If you're not already using a paper-based bedding, I probably would suggest using one, or just providing more nesting like toilet paper, just because they may have a harder time keeping up their body heat, so you kind of just want them to be as cozy and snuggly in their nest as possible. So I know this topic isn't obviously the most fun topic to talk about, but it is the reality of owning any animal basically, and I hope this has been able to help anybody who is dealing with an aging hamster. And I kind of also just wanted to make this video to update you guys on Honey and how she is starting to show the elderly hamster signs, and I just wanted to let you guys know that. So yeah guys, thank you for watching. Bye!